Hey, what's up, folks? This is MOG. This is a follow-up from my last video. It's kind of like a part two, and it's just me. And I've been musing on what I was saying in the first video concerning game design and culture of play, and having the game that influence the culture of play and stuff like that. And for me, this is not it is not a new idea. It is not something super complicated to understand. But I find it really interesting, and I was musing on that, and I think there is some reasons to really consider what you're doing in terms of role-playing games. I will so what I said in the first video is that you have some games where you're gonna have a certain type of culture of play surrounding them. So I was calling out, D&D, D&D Pathfinder, stuff like that, and I was saying, the Munchkin culture of play, what people call Munchkin, is like really little role playing and a lot of number crushing and just going forward and wanted to roll and combat all the time, stuff like that, and just trying to get going, and nobody cares about your character personality and background. Nobody cares about anything. It's just about rolling the dice and going forward and killing stuff and power gaming the whole thing surrounding that, because that's how we play. So that culture, like I said in the last video, is really expressing the games that supports it. And I was making all kinds of proposition about the fact that different game, different culture. And so, the whole idea is that the design of a game is really gonna structure the way you speak, the way you roll the dice, when you roll the dice, how you roll the dice, the way you do your decision making, why, how, the design of the game, the rules, the intent of the design is really gonna format and structure and influence the way the game is played. So that I said in the last video. But what I was musing on is the idea that the fact that house rules has a lot to do with culture of play as well. I'll give you an example. Like if you take the D&D 5, for example, there's so many different ways people are playing it. You have people who role play a lot with it, and some people who are munchkin-y a lot about it, And I was like, okay, so how does that fit my first proposition? Saying that the design influenced the thing. And I was like, might be something that the people who are playing it, the design, it might be something that the people who are playing the game, they add something to it from their own, or they take away something to it from their own, and that create different culture. So for example, if you take D&D 5, and that's house rule. So if you take D&D 5, for example, and you get into a munchkin group, that's a no-brainer. You look at the character sheet, it's all directed toward combat. Not a lot of stuff is directed toward role play. It is, you look at that and you look at the rules and you look at the kind of character you can create with the game. It is really gonna go that way easy. It's easy to do. In other words, it's easy. The game is easily influence the munchkin type of play. It is I'm not saying that it encourages it. I'm just saying that it's easy to fall into that route. But there is some 5e group out there who are role playing more, and they put the character forward and they put the personalities and stuff forward. And I was like, all right, so what could possibly do that if I want my first proposition to be relevant? So for me, it's house rule. And what is a house? What is a house rule in the first place? House rule is the way you want to do things, not the way the game tells you to do. All right, so you are an individual, or you're a group of individuals sitting around a table with a game. The game is a structure, you know, it's really rational, it's really clear. There's a set of rules, you got to play by those rules. So people who are house ruling, they take away some stuff and they add some stuff to it. You know, avoiding stuff and all the kind of house rules possible. And I was like, what is this phenomenon exactly, house ruling? And what it is people introducing their own way, their psyche, their cultures, their comfort zone, whatever there is, into a game that in the first place is not what they are. So basically what it creates is that it creates this some kind of cycle between the design and the people who are house ruling it, where the game they end up playing is as part of these guys in it. It's really hard for me in English to say that, but it's like you are actively, by house ruling, you are actively putting some of your own, who you are, what the stuff you like, the stuff you don't like, into the game that doesn't suppose that in the first place. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like the game that you're going to end up playing, or the style that you're going to end up having, or the culture of play that you're going to end up embodying, is going to look like who you are in terms of individuals playing it. So that was my musing. So I was like, okay, so some games, if I take like a game like really like Torchbearer, for example, you know, Torchbearer, it's really hard to house rule that, or Burning Wheel, it's really hard to house rule that or feed, because the system is so tight that if you start house ruling stuff, it kind of falls down and it becomes useless. So what happened, because I've noticed this, like a game like D&D, really hackable, you know, especially D&D 5, you get into a group and you don't know what you're gonna get, because you don't know how much of house ruling and the way people play it, you know, has been going on in that group. So you go there and you end up, oh fuck, it's a bunch of munchkin, fuck that, you know. Or you end up there and it's like, oh nice, I like the way you guys do it, you know. But if you go into a game like Torchbearer or Burning Wheel or Feed, you know, or Burning Empires, you cannot do that. So what you end up having is a culture of play that is exactly the same at every table. And that's really eloquent of something for me. It's like, this is what triggers the whole thing, is that you go into these games, like the Burning Con or something like that, you go there and you know what you're gonna get. You know exactly how it's gonna be played. Even these guys, these guys call themselves burners. You know, they even have a name for that style, you know? So I'm looking at that and I'm people who play Burning Wheel, Burning Empires and stuff at the Burning Con and Torchbearer. And I was thinking, you see, that's really interesting, because it creates the fact that the game is not being house ruled. It's being played by the book, because it's really hard to do it. You can try as long as you want, but you end up with something that is like a monster, like Frankenstein. You don't want to have a Frankenstein experiment. So so it's like you go there and everybody understands what the culture of play is, because it's the design experience. It's the design. It's by design. It's by the rules. So that was an interesting musing, because I felt like saying that a game creates culture was a little bit hard in terms of proposition. And I was like, what's the reason why, you know, some games are loose like that? And I do think house rule is the piece of the puzzle that was missing. You know, in other words, every time you house rule a game, it's because you have an intention toward the game and toward the experience you get. And that intention can be anything. But the fact that you have an intention is because it's doing something that you don't like, or it's not doing something that you want. So you take some of your own, you put it in there, and now it does it, or or something like that. So if you look at a really munchkiny game, what they're gonna do, they're gonna take away all the light encumbrance movement rules. They're gonna take away all the stuff that slow down the I want to get going. They're gonna take it all off, and they're not gonna use it. They're gonna take some of the role play out, because it takes time, and it makes people talk a lot, and stuff are lagging and stagnating. So we're not gonna put importance on that. So we're not gonna use them. And so what it creates as a result, it's like an equation. What it creates as a result, Munchkin style. Because it's just like arcade, they don't do the draw, they don't use the draw weapon rules. Everybody walks around with fireballs in their hand and swords and arcade mode, So by taking away these rules, the result is that kind of experience. You know what I'm saying? So house ruling and design for me is key to understand gaming culture. Alright, I'd like to hear what you guys think about this. Talk to you soon.